So, if you've watched YouTube for any amount of time, you're probably aware of subscriber awards that YouTube gives out when people pass 100,000, a million, 10 million subscribers, and so on. Well, my channel's nowhere close to that. And I've been doing this almost 11 years. But a few weeks ago, I was looking through my stats and noticed that my views had passed a million. And there's no award for that, not from YouTube. But for me, that was a pretty big accomplishment. I was pretty happy with that. So I decided that since I've been playing with sculpting recently, that I would make my own play button award. So I started with this little base that I drilled a couple holes in. It's a little piece of wood I just picked up at Michael's. And then I took some thick aluminum armature wire and started making the armature, the guts, the skeleton of this little statue I'm making. And then used some floral wire to kind of tie it together and connect the top piece to the bottom. And then also I wanted to use this to make kind of the bone structure for the arms. And in retrospect, I should have done the connection between the torso and the legs a little differently. It wasn't real steady as I was getting all of the clay put on, and it kind of wanted to lean back a little bit. So in the next thing I make, I'm going to have to play with that a little bit. But it still worked. With the wire in place, I then kind of filled the whole thing out with aluminum foil. And the idea here is that you won't have to use as much clay. The clay won't be as thick, so it'll be less prone to cracking. Once I had that in place, I covered it with some Sculpey Ultralight, which this is the first time I've ever used it, and it's kind of weird to me. It just feels weird compared to other clays that I've used. It's kind of doughy. And I put the clay through my pasta press to get it into even strips. That kind of worked. Once I had it all covered, then I baked it. And then after the bake, I started covering it with original Sculpey that had also gone through my pasta press, and this worked a lot better than it did with the ultralight. But I think that's more because of the kind of uneven stack that I had of the aluminum for the armature. I also used some thin strips to wrap the legs. And I finally got a spoon tool to help smooth things out. I'm pretty happy with that purchase. I'll provide a link in the description to the one I got. After that, it was just a lot of smoothing, trying to get that surface as flat as I could, as smooth as I could. And I need some more practice as far as this stage goes. For the play button itself, like the actual triangle, I took some more clay that had gone through the pasta roller and cut out a triangle, but it wasn't quite thick enough, so I ended up stacking it and basically having a double thickness. And I just kind of placed it to kind of figure out how it looked proportionally, and I was happy with it. And next up are the feet, or I guess the shoes. And I just rolled up a couple balls of clay and tried to kind of form them into a boot shape, and then just blend them into the legs that were already there. And then I also rolled some thin snakes to be kind of the top of his socks. I didn't want to go super detailed, but I wanted some detail. I also cut, I guess it'd be kind of like a toe into the shoe, like what you would see on Converse All-Stars. And then rolled some really thin snakes to be the shoelaces. And with sausage fingers like mine, it's kind of hard to do that and get them in place, but I'm happy with how they turned out. And then to get it ready for its second bake, I used the side of one of my ball tools to really just kind of rolling pin the whole thing and really smooth it out. Then I applied some Bacon Bond to the back of the arrow and just used a little paintbrush to try to smooth that out, make the coverage a little more even. And then I just centered it on the body. And to try to help it stay in place, I used a needle tool and kind of stabbed it at each point through the triangle into the body in the hopes that that would kind of push some of the clay from the one piece to the other and help to kind of secure it in place while it cooked. And this did actually work pretty well. And then I just had to smooth over the holes that the needle tool left. And then I used a ball tool to kind of form the sockets for the eyes. And then I rolled 2 really small balls of clay to just kind of drop into those holes and then kind of just slightly squish them in place. And then I rolled another snake that I then formed into a U shape, and this is for his smile. And again, not having delicate fingers, this took a few tries to get it in place and get it where I wanted it. But it worked. And then in preparation for the second bake, I took some clay softener and just kind of brushed it across the whole thing to try to get rid of some of my fingerprints and hopefully kind of smooth out some of the little dings and other deformities. And this worked okay. After the second bake, I started on the hands. And for these I used Super Sculpey Firm, just because I hadn't used any on this project yet. And then I just tried to cut and form some fingers and then kind of round over the cut lines so it was a little more smooth. And then I rolled a smaller ball to be the thumb. And my idea here is I wanted one hand to kind of be given a thumbs up and the other hand to just be relaxed. So that one was the thumbs up, and I kind of curled the fingers a little bit so it was more like a fist with thumbs up. And then the other hand was just relaxed. I also cut some more kind of thin strips of clay. These are to wrap around the arms, just like I did on the legs. While I was applying that clay, I went ahead and bent the left arm so that the thumbs up would be kind of high in the air. I tried to really smooth the transition from the arm to the body. I applied a little more Bacon Bond to help with the application of the hands. Hopefully secure them in place a little better. And then I took some small pieces of clay to wrap around the transition from the wrist to the hand. Just kind of close that up and join the two types of clay together. And it sort of acted like a collar, I guess, almost like they were gloved hands. And then I used more clay softener, again, to try to just get rid of some of my fingerprints and try to even the surface out a little bit. And with that, it's ready for its last bake. With the baking done and the whole piece cooled, it's time to paint. And so I started with some Folk Art Titanium White. And this was really just for the triangle part of the play button and also for the gloves. And then I made sure to get the edges as well. I think I ended up doing about 4 coats of the white before I was happy with it. And then for the body, I used craft paint brand dark red acrylic and a big fat brush, and just paint it over the whole body and the arms. I wanted to keep the legs a different color. And then for the wooden base, I used some Folk Art nickel metallic paint to just kind of go over that whole thing. And I think this would have turned out a little bit better if I would have done a different color first as kind of a primer, just because the wood absorbs so much of the paint. That did take several coats. And then for the boots, I used Folk Art Color Shift Black Flash. I haven't used Color Shift paint before, but I've seen it in videos from other people that do sculpting, and I just wanted to give it a shot. I actually use a couple different colors of it on this project. For the legs, I just used some regular gloss black acrylic. And while I was painting this, my 8-year-old son Liam came down to visit. He thinks this clay sculpting is really neat, so he just wanted to watch how I painted it. And I did a video years ago about my Festool vacuum, and at the end he makes an appearance writing on the vacuum with me. Use that same gloss black for the eyes and mouth, and then of course back to the red, but now with a small brush to kind of fill in around the eyes and the mouth. And I did end up smudging some of the black, but I came back later to clean that up. Use some Emerald Flash Color Shift on the, I guess it'd be the socks, kind of the cuffs there at the top of his boots. I just wanted to, I don't know, make it a little weird, but also experiment with this new type of paint, at least new for me. And I ended up doing the shoelaces with this same color. And then for the seam in between the toe and the rest of the boot, I used the smallest brush I have and Folk Art Cerulean Blue gloss paint. And then lastly, I used some Folk Art Green Flash Color Shift paint. And this was to paint in the numbers on the base, and I just tried to paint out 1 million views. I'm not very good at painting letters yet. This is something I've been practicing, just because sign painting is another skill, another trade that kind of fascinates me. So that was fun. And he's done. He will now go up on my bookshelf. And this is the award I give myself for 1 million views. Thanks for watching. If you want to see more of the things I do in my shop, please subscribe, and we'll see you next time.